Hi guys, hope you're good. Welcome along to episode 2 of the AGN podcast. It was going to be just a normal live stream because, well, life happens and it was potentially going to be just that, but no. Last minute change around the plans back to the podcast concept. So we had the first one last week that people seemed to enjoy. We will introduce again the math nut, Andy. He'll be on the other screen in a second, but just making sure all the chat is working correctly. Oh, my mind, hello, hope you're well. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I will just make sure all myself enough. So I hope you haven't got those issues. Generally speaking, first point, Jay, a little stuttering to start. Yes, normally does. This is why, generally speaking, it's always good to get the countdown timer going for a little bit longer than the about 17 seconds that you had. It's just a case of because we had to get all the stuff ready for podcasts rather than just normal live stream. It was a bit of a race against the clock. And so just give us 5 seconds or so for everything to calm itself down. Video and audio problems. Well, that's an interesting one. Try the stream is a bit laggy for me, juttering. Resolution. Drop your resolution down to something like 720p or something like that. There is generally, that's what happens. First thing in the stream when YouTube goes, we need to give a bit more bandwidth to this person here. And so, we got around it last week by having the countdown that we had at the very start a little bit longer. But as I say, less glitchy now. There we go. Takes a little bit of time to iron itself out. Biggie Small says seems fixed. 369. Looking forward to this one. And Jay Balorgaron. Apologies if I've absolutely assassinated your last name. It's less glitchy now. All good. Right, so as might as well introduce. Hello. I've got to get it on the right screen. If not, Andy's just going to disappear and then not ever. Okay, that's going to be an interesting one. I have to. It's all right, guys. I'm trying to make sure that when I flick over here, Andy does not just disappear. He might done. Let's go see if he's actually there.
Am I here? Ta-da!
He is, or not. There we go.
Yeah.
Getting on the right window so Andy stays active rather than goes black. Although I suppose people are getting sick and tired of me, they might actually don't mind a black screen for an evening.
I mean,
Just
that's
have
what
Andy.
podcasts used to be, just audio. Videos, like.
Can you imagine that? Not having the pleasure.
Oh yeah, I love it.
An interesting one. Mine said sadly on 720, the same for me, still jittering. Interesting. Biggie Smalls says it seems fixed. So that is an interesting, and then also less glitchy now. So it seems to be different for different people.
Just like golf.
Yes. Very, very much so like golf. Right, so chat's going as we saw. What I might do, just make it slightly bigger for everybody to see. I've got the chat on my left-hand side here anyway, so if it all goes through and we don't get to replying to everybody, then of course I can just scroll through without interrupting your chat, as we can see just about there. Welcome, Andy. How are you?
A little tired.
Yep. Tired and busy. What does Eero say? Jay, the JPX Forge seems like on the best all-round clubs in the database. Can you explain a bit why? Best from a radar map might not be the best club for an individual, question mark. Yes, we will get to that one, absolutely, because that's going to be firmly for topic number 5 of the agenda. I'm going with that every single week. I was impressed with myself
every single time.
Yeah, I was impressed with myself last week, and so I'll be impressed with myself every single week after this. So you got that joy to look forward to at every podcast coming forward. Right, so as you can see, we have that. Should I have them the other way around? I'm not quite sure. Doesn't matter. Let's just go. First of all, we'll get the questions going, but let's just try and go for topic 1 if we can, very, very quickly. Now, this one is for me to start. It's working now. Just shut down YouTube and reopened. There you go. Just shut it down. Right. So I had a. Is that the IT way? Is that the classic?
Yeah, the IT way. Reboot. Wait 30 seconds. Turn it on again.
Yeah. And people get paid to give that advice. So,
So,
right.
No, that's the advice they're forced to give because the people should just do that automatically. But...
Oh, right. Who needs first line support? Right, so I've got a question here by Michael Sinclair, who's a new Gold member, who's asked a question of me. And because it is, there's many questions, I asked him if it was okay for me to answer this question in the podcast or live stream. There's information here that necessarily you don't know. He talks about his bag and what shafts he's got and bits and pieces like that. But effectively, he's got a Ping G430 4 and 5 hybrid, so 22 and 26 degree. He struggles with his 4 hybrid and he wants to know if transferring to something like a Mizuno 7 wood, or it doesn't have to be Mizuno, he's mentioned Mizuno, but it could be any manufacturer's 7 wood, to see if that would work any better. He's also talking about should he get the 230 Max instead of his Titleist GT2 driver. Again, that's an interesting point because it depends very much on how you hit it. But
yeah, I mean, like what is his problem with each of them? It would be my next follow-up question. Like, better at what? Better distance, better accuracy. You know, it depends on what the better is. You got to define better before you can pick something better.
Yes, very much so. It comes down to fit at the end of it. And as I say, if you could have the best golf club or the most expensive shaft and the most expensive combo, everything, if it's not fit for you, it's a colossal waste of money. So absolutely, I would say potentially you're looking at the difference between GT2 and the ST230 Max driver. They should knock that one on the head. If you were looking at raw forgiveness, consistency, distance factor, we'll get onto that one in a sec. But if you're looking at it from that point of view, then arguably the 230 is a little bit more consistent overall than that of the GT2. So potentially if you're a sprayer, you might get some benefit from that, but primarily get fit on that one.
I mean, it's both the type. I mean, the GT2 to a less extent than the GT3, but both of them were very much, you know, they're forgiving in terms of speed, but the shot shape from both of them were, you know, a lot more problematic than the distance.
Well, yeah, I mean, this goes back to the advanced data for the drivers that we're starting to. Well, we're well in the development phase of it. It's just a case of we got to get, like we did no different to the iron heat maps to start with. We had to get a lot of data to make sure that it worked and it worked well enough. And then, of course, it was then tweaked as the weeks went on to where it is now. And with the advanced data, because it's with the driver being a roll and bulge face, it is far more complex than it is a flat-faced iron. But you'll always get some drivers which are a bit more sensitive to tilt, curvature, turning the golf ball one way or the other way at different points, depending if there's draw biased or fade biased or neutral, and then how much it wants to tilt a golf ball when you don't hit the middle. But yeah, get 230 Max, obviously great driver, GT2 great driver as well, but I would primarily say get fit would be the most ideal on that one. But the main thing is, would there be a benefit going to a 7 wood instead of a 4 hybrid? What do you think, Andy, on that one?
I mean, yeah, like in general, I mean, the 7 wood is going to give you less options in its playability, right? It's going to be harder to hit off fine, hard, compacted fairway, and it might be. Although Tiger says that he prefers a wood out of the rough more than any other club. I guess because the high face allows you to not have to perfectly judge where the ball's sitting compared to the ground. So maybe out of the rough, that wood would be better. I don't know. I guess I don't think there's inherently one's better than the other. I would assume that the wood's going to give you, more surface area to hit, and obviously ball speed if that's an issue.
Yeah, well, I think because the interesting thing, obviously, he's got from here, he's saying he's got his Ping G430, 22 degree and 26 degree, so 4 and 5 hybrid. So let's just pick on Ping for a moment. Obviously, they do their 7 wood idea. And the thing is with Pings, generically you'd say with Pings, they've got a fairly shallow face for their fairway woods. They have been very shallow faced. So CG wise, it has the potential of getting that golf ball going up, launching higher, loft
Yeah.
for loft than the
Definitely.
hybrid. Now, you've got shaft length, which is the biggest key on here when it comes to, you've got one which is going to be more functional. You could argue, yes, that the 7 wood, lower centre of gravity, bigger head anyway, and the shallow face is potentially going to get that golf ball loft for loft, launching better. But then you've got the question mark over the potential misses involved in strike because of the longer shaft. It's going to be one of those.
Yeah.
So unless you test it, you don't know. But from the physics, just going by Ping, not all manufacturers' heads are as flat to the deck as Ping. Some, if you look at the sole plate, it's more like this, and some are flat. And effectively, if you're looking at something like let's just say a Ping, for example, with a very, very flat base, potentially brilliant off a fairway, really tight. But then when you're looking at something like rough, where you need a little bit more height in the face, would probably be a bit more advantageous, especially with amateur golfers not having the best low point control. Could be problematic, but I mean it's
swings and roundabouts. But
5 millimeters.
so let's say off a fairway line, like a relatively nice fairway line, not too hard. Which do you think provides better reaction to low point control? Because I think if you tend to be chunky, I would assume that the 7 wood is just going to eat more ground and just rob you of rob you of speed, and then therefore override the benefit that it brings. I would assume that a hybrid is better.
If you have a very flat face sole like a Ping does, if you've got relatively poor low point control and you do have a tendency to hit the ground fractionally early and that kind of idea, with a very flat faced or flat sole plate, that provides a good resistance to dig. If you're dealing with a fairway wood with a fairly curved bottom, that will just enter the ground quite easily. That will, that's where you get the lovely little divots after the ball.
It just takes up like a carpet rolling up. The carpet rolling up the club.
But then it could also work the other way, that if you're in super hard conditions and you've got a very, very flat sole plate, you hit the ground, it just bounces and you can top it. I mean, primarily the issue is not the golf club, it's the poor control of low point. And so I would always, for golfers, generally speaking, you're looking at, first of all, the ability to strike it first. Get something which is, when you're talking about woods and hybrids, we're talking really extending shaft length over like a 7-iron or an 8-iron. So first of all, let's just get decent, solid-ish club contact, and then once we've got that, okay, let's work out what's the most functional. Because it doesn't matter if arguably physics dictate that the 7 wood could do this more than that less, if you can't strike it and you're spraying it everywhere. So I would say 7 wood, yes. Obviously, lofts is different, 22 against 20.5, 21, depending, obviously 20.5 for a Ping, where we're looking at 22. But again, we've got the loft sleeve on both of them, so they can be tweaked to suit the gapping. You've got a longer shaft length on the 7, which means potentially you're going to get a slightly faster club head speed, which means then it's going to go further. Really, the true gapper would potentially be a 9 wood, depending on how you react to everything. But it's a really interesting question. It is a really interesting question.
And I don't think there's a perfect answer. I think a big part of it's going to be personal preference too. I don't think I would ever personally play a fairway wood over my hybrids. Even like I just don't think I'd just always hit my hybrids well. So, that comes down to it too.
Yeah, I can hit my because I've got five. So I've got driver 3 wood, and then I go 3 hybrid, 4 hybrid. I have got a 5 and 7 wood, but they'll only come out under certain conditions and stuff like that. So if I need to get everything, if I'm playing on greens which are like rock, and I know I've got shots that are going to go in the 200-yard kind of arena. Well, my 5-iron won't do that unless I absolutely step on it. But then that brings into play the potential miss hitting it when I'm really trying to step on something. So I would go into something like a very, very high lofted 7 wood. So getting a 7 wood and weaken it off as much as I possibly can do to get that golf ball just going up. I'll do that. But under most conditions, when you haven't got like ridiculously hard greens, for me, the 3-4 hybrid does every single thing that I want a long iron, because that's what they are, effectively my long irons, to do, that the long irons won't. Just wins. And it's got a short shaft, so it's easier to control. Yeah, you lose a little bit on potential launch factor because the CG is different to a fairway wood, but you compare that to not being able to hit your fairway wood properly because the shaft is too long for you to control. Any kind of advantage you gain from that just loses straight away. And then Michael talks about basically changing his Vogue keys for potential T3s or T1s, and within reason, by the end of the question, he's now completely bought a whole new Mizuno golf bag. At the end of the day,
before he even replied, he's asking. He got talked himself into it.
I know he's gone from his Vogue keys then to looking at T3s and at the end of the day, he just bought some JPX 923 forged with some Project X IO 5.5 shafts. Really happy with those last year, and he's talking about his driver. And before you know it, you could change. Now the whole idea, I would say, all manufacturers make brilliant equipment as a general rule. No manufacturer makes, throughout the whole entire range, rubbish equipment. They don't. The main thing is get fit. Just make sure you get fit. You've got when it comes to irons, that's why we've got the website, www.askgolfnut.com, where things like the self-fit tool, you can test all the 60 or so irons we've got on there. You can compare them with your swing speed, your delivery dynamics, to see what the potential gains, the weaknesses, the strengths are in different irons, to see if they suit your needs. But once you've used that, the self-fit tool is there to narrow down the search parameters for however many there are on the market. And every manufacturer would like to say that their golf clubs suit everybody, but they don't. So that's what it's designed for. So, but yeah, if you want a whole Mizuno bag off your trot, no problem with that whatsoever. Many good players play with all singular brand, but primarily just make sure you get what fits for you. So this is shall we do a couple of questions on chat first? Sure. We'll get past all it's now starting to clear up on the chat. Eros, I'll come back to that one if I can.
Demoing drivers.
Say again?
308 J-Ball Oregon demoing drivers is the first question, I think.
Oh, I've got to scroll right down. Here we go. Yeah. Hi Jay, looking for your advice. I need to replace my current gamer driver shaft. I was playing the MC Grand Basara GB39 stiff. Whoever names these pieces of equipment is just literally beyond me. Would the TPT or the GD AG 333-3 ZX14 -1 be good options?
I honestly don't know those profiles off the top of my head.
But even if we did, even if we knew them intimately, right? Shane has got a brilliant question. In essence, it's a brilliant, brilliant question. However, anyone, any professional, in any manner of speaking, in golf, would turn around and say to you, this suits you more than the other one, with just the information that you've just shared there. We don't know how fast you swing, more importantly, how you create that speed, what your delivery conditions are, how you bend the shaft in all different manners, I don't know. And if we did, we could then potentially help in some way. I've got a feeling, and it is a feeling, that Andy currently is frantically looking for the bend profiles of those two shafts, if I know him. Not at all. Um, he is. But the thing is, they could be absolutely the same from a point of view of being very, very close together, but you as a human interact with them massively, massively differently. I have seen next to no patterns whatsoever dealing with I don't know how many people that I've dealt with over the years, and the only pattern I would absolutely say that there is within a fitting is that most humans are malleable and they can be convinced that something is happening when it's not. And so that is a great sales tactic for getting people to buy stuff, when really you need to see it in the data when it comes to quad. Especially if you're working indoors, then absolutely quad. I'm not a great fan of TrackMan. TrackMan's brilliant in its own right, and outside it's great. Indoors you cannot beat quad. Measured data, you cannot beat it. But I would honestly want to see what the launch differences are, what your strike differences are. There is a myriad of things to talk about, and because we've got so little information, unfortunately, other than what you've got there, no one will be able to answer that. And if they will answer it, they're trying to sell you something. Go on, Andy. Have you found anything?
They're light, ultra lightweight Japanese profiles, basically. So
Right.
Super
Well, yeah.
high
I mean,
launch.
I know the Passara GB39 did Mizuno or use a very, very similar shaft to that in the original ST200X. If I remember something like that, it was a grey silver painted shaft.
I mean, the time I remember seeing the Grand Passara used, I think, was in the Callaway Elite Star series, because they're Star model heads from Japan are super lightweight.
Either or, generally speaking, with a 39 gram shaft or 45 gram shaft or anywhere near that, it's not going to be the stiffest profile in the world. So we'll have a little bit of kick to it. Now, for people that are affected by kick points and bend profiles in general, it's going to be fairly active. Lots and lots of variables, unfortunately. Name Withdrawn says, I got rid of the 5-wood hybrids and use a 5-iron that carries 210. It's 20 yards longer than me. Right.
That's not saying much.
How far do you carry your 5-iron?
I don't have a 5-iron.
Exactly. Ryan says, Hero, have you tried the Fly High hybrids? They are pretty good. I'm yet to find a 7-iron that can produce better numbers than the 28-degree version of it. The problem is, for the Fly Highs, they are amazing. If anyone has seen the review that I have done with the heat maps, etc., you'll understand just how good they are. Okay, it's not a fair fight. We are talking about a hybrid effectively against an iron, but it is very, very good. You cannot compete with physics. You can't. However, the issue is they only go down to 7. They do not go down 8, 9 pitching wedge. There are some manufacturers that do make hybrid irons, and yes, they do look a bit funky when you're looking down to a pitching wedge and it is a hybrid, all that loft looking at you, but they do. But that's the only disadvantage. The fact that you can get, obviously, all the custom fit options, etc., is a good thing, but yeah, that's the only thing I would say. It just doesn't go down to pitching wedge that I would like Mizuno to do. Okay, so we'll do some more questions and comments in a little bit. Chat between yourselves, guys, or if anyone can help anyone else who's popped a question or anything on there, by all means, do so. Right, so this where I'm going to have to hand over to Andy a little bit, because I've done it in the past, and I'm not going to get involved in golf forums. They are just the last bastion of the keyboard warrior, and I'm staying out of it. However, Andy has a story.
It's less about the forum and the concept behind it that I think we should talk about, and
that's why I said rant.
Yeah, it's about saying that you can't play golf a certain way is the general point, and that you know I made a statement saying that saying somebody's swing parameters were fine because they were fine. They weren't good. They weren't particularly bad. They're just fine. And with any swing, there's certain nuances that you can you improve on that slightly. Yeah, are you going to gain a lot by improving on that slightly? No. And the main function came down to angle of attack on the driver and how um, you shouldn't try to hit up more than 4 degrees because you just can't control it. And and that just it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because it doesn't like your swing is a circle basically, and any point within your swing there is a section of it that has an angle of attack from -10 to +10, and if you deliver that club consistently, like at any point angle of attack, if you no matter where you are, if you consistently hit that same point at that angle of attack, you could play consistent golf. There's nothing to say that at 7-8, why you would have significant deviances at 7 AOA versus 0 AOA if you can
So,
control
what?
your club
Just
path.
to clarify, we're talking this injury is saying you can't hit, let's say, a driver 7 up. You can't functionally hit a
Well,
golf ball
nobody
consistently
should
at
be
7
trying.
up.
Nobody should be trying to play at 7 up. Is the general concern? No, like you're going to play bad golf if you play at 7 up, and
Well, I've got my opinion on it.
yeah. I mean, my opinion is that it does, so long as you can produce the same, if you could produce the same shot over and over again, and wherever your swing is 7 up, you put a ball there. If you could put the club in that spot every time, you could play any variance of numbers within a reason. That there's certain things you can't do, like you can't de-loft it 12 degrees and expect a normal fly. You're going to have two clubs lower fly, but as long as you're
Yeah.
you're, you're consistent within the realms of plus or minus a couple of degrees here and there, any swing is playable if you understand the good and the bad from that swing.
Yeah, right. So, from a coach's perspective and from custom fitting perspective, let's put both hats on. If I had someone come to me and they're displaying fairly consistent delivery characteristics, which generally speaking, if you look at all the amateurs that I've ever taught over the years, ranging from just like beginners all the way to very, very, very good elite amateurs, angle attacks, club paths rarely change. What happens when people go wrong is their face angle changes and their strike point changes. Those are the two things which is common across every single golfer. And as soon as you start getting better, what you see is those misses, the face and also the face to path and also the strike misses, they get smaller. That's effectively what you see. You see patterns, of course you do, but effectively what you'll see is things get smaller. When you take it to the elite level, we're talking tour pros, their swing hardly, of course they're not robots, but they hardly ever change. And if you were to take their impact conditions, let's talk driver. And even within the pro ranks, you have a myriad of different swings, ranging from super up on it to super down on it. And yes, the TrackMan, again, it's TrackMan, not quad, they measure slightly different points, but let's just take it as gospel. TrackMan, I think, I can't remember if it moved from something like 2 degrees down on average to effectively flat or 1 degree up,
It's
or
like
I can't
point
remember what it
eight
is now.
down. Yeah, it's like
0.8
0.8
down,
down.
right. So, but the trend has moved fractionally more up over the years, where people through science and physics now with launch monitors understand that with a driver especially, it is more advantageous for maximizing distance to be in that angle of attack rather than that angle of attack. And so there is a point. However, if you measure those PGA Tour players and what they are at impact, they are this, whatever number you would want to be. And they're consistent at doing that. If you were to measure their same swings, their consistent same swings at impact, 10 inches back, it will be a completely different number because you're talking about the three-dimensional swing. Obviously, it's like a up and a down compound motion. But still is exactly the same. They'll still repeat the exact numbers every single time. They've got very, very repeating swings. And if they were to hit the golf ball there rather than 10 inches further forward like their normal impact position, they would just deliver different numbers. Now that would encourage the golf ball to do a completely different thing, but that's basically no different to every single other PGA Tour player playing a shot which is higher or lower, or playing a fade, or playing a draw. Because in their swing, they do a certain thing commonly, move ball positions and do things like this, which encourages different flights. But it doesn't stop them from being able to hit good shots, because they're PGA Tour players and they know how to do their job. When it comes to amateur golfers, if you measure them exactly the same, there's no different. They're just as varied in impact as they are 10 inches back. So saying that an individual cannot play a 7+ up, let's say, yes, what it will do, it will absolutely pigeonhole potentially them in a launch condition, which means you can't hit a stinger if you're hitting 7 up, or if you do, you've got to be hitting some severely weird. But what we're saying is there is no physical reason why someone has to, with a driver, they have to hit between this tiny margin to hit a really good functional shot. Because you look on tour, well, they're outside of that margin anyway, that range, and they're on tour.
Yeah, it's just the thing about tour averages. It's just a tour average. Like the range of, I want to know the range. I want to know what what this guy hits and what this guy hits, and if somehow they've got a difference of 10 degrees AOA between them, then there's no reason why one of those values is not right.
What's the average distance on tour?
284, is it around that?
What's the longest? Who's the longest on tour at the moment?
340. Yeah, it's like what
so in that case, who's the shortest?
There's no way the guy hitting.
There's got to be so many down that end.
There's no way you're hitting 340 yards with a 0 AOA.
No. That's what I'm saying. So, just
what's the current trend, right? What's the buzz right now? Bomb and gouge, right? Use bomb and gouge. Just hit it as far as you can, and recover from it. So the only way to hit it as far as you can is to hit up on it. You're not bombing it if you're not hitting up on it.
No, and do you know what? If you look at the stats from a point of view of ShotLink, obviously from the PGA Tour side, they still use ShotLink. But then, even if you use Arcos, stuff like that, distance matters. And as long as it's functional distance, what I mean by functional distance is you are not hitting a recovery shot. That's all it is. It does not matter if you're in the rough. It does not matter if you're in the fairway. I would much rather put you down 50 yards further in the rough than I would have you 50 yards back in the fairway.
Yeah, I mean, what's the stats on that? It's like 4 times more likely to make par from 50 yards further in the rough than you are 50 yards back in.
It's crazy. Fairway's important because it gives the greenkeepers something to do. Obviously, when they're finished doing the greens, they can just go down the fairways and do that bit.
And then the other follow-up to that is like, if you have to hit your shots within a certain window of acceptable parameters, like 4 AOA, face the path, path in 4 degrees, between 0 and 4 degrees, face the path between 0 and 4 degrees, whatever. Then what is workability all about? What is shot shaping all about? Why do we talk about clubs having workability as a big factor when you get better? If you have to hit X parameters, then what is shot shaping? Shot shaping is when you deliberately don't hit your normal parameters to produce a shot different than your normal shot.
Yeah, I would agree 100% on the basis of workability is the golfer and not the golf club. I've done too many tests now. Some that I've done on YouTube, hashtag no one cares. It's interesting when you actually do a video which I feel would put to bed some of the myths that people keep on propagating constantly for the advantage of sales more than anything else, and it's manufacturers as well. No one really cares. When you do a video on a random golf club, they love it. So yeah, unfortunately, it's just the way YouTube. But
and it's like the period when like everybody wanted to be like Tiger and hit the stinger, right? Like Tiger started hitting the stingers in tournaments, and everybody wanted to go out and practice that shot. And a lot of people were just able to pull it off. They never thought about it before. What do I have to do? And like he puts the ball almost by behind his right foot, just catches it at like 10 down with a normal shaft lead, and it's just like,
Yeah.
under
Because
the wind.
it's like a pendulum. If you imagine it's just doing this, and it's swinging around like this and stuff like that. Or I mean, you're hitting a driver on the way up, so handle positions here. You're hitting driver on the way up, and then he was hitting with an iron, handle ahead, and club head coming down. So not only is he hitting 10 down, he's also delivering, let's say if he was keeping his hula hoop the same, 10 degrees less loft. I mean, 10 down, I mean, that launch angle is just going to be...
Yeah. But, I mean, he plays that shot for a reason, and there's nothing inherently wrong with hitting that shot.
No.
And that's the thing, is like, the values that you hit the shot at determine its flight, and there's a valid, the valid shape for every flight to a degree, so...
The only thing I would ever say that there is a certain point of saying that you have to do this or you have to do that to hit a good shot would be this. There is an absolute fact that you cannot hit a very good driver 7 up when the ball is on the floor.
And it's like
because it's not on a tee. And to hit 7 up, you're going to have to miss the floor or go through the floor. You don't want to do that. You have to miss the floor. By the time you come in 7 up, to get to 7 up, you're topping the golf ball. So that's the only restriction, literally only restriction you're going to have. Yes, you're going to have spin, loft, things to talk about, how much spin you're going to have on the golf ball with your speed, etc. That's a different conversation. Because then that goes down the point of saying, if you do this, then there's a pattern of this happening, but it doesn't mean that you can't play functional good shots. It just means that you, on the extremes of certain things, like 10 up, 15 up, that you will have a pattern of doing a certain thing. And you can't do a stinger from hitting a driver 15 up, no different to you can't hit the golf ball on a really high bombing flight if you're hitting 10 degrees down. But there's nothing wrong with hitting either or, because you can be as consistent as the next person hitting either or.
Yeah. I mean,
There you go.
if the rule of thumb was to teach everybody to play the same swing, within those windows, every pro on tour would be hitting exactly the same shots over and over again. And I don't know 2 pros back to back off the tee off the driver hit the same shot.
No, they all play their certain. Well, again, there's certain things that they always play. Some play a fade, some play a draw, some play fairly straight. Some people like hitting it higher, some people hitting it lower, but they've got their strategy on that hole. Some people take the corner on, some people won't, and there are so many different things. It's, to say that someone can't do something when you're talking about such relatively minor things. It's not like we're saying a golfer can't hit shots with an angle of attack 45 degrees up. Well, I kind of get that. That makes sense.
That's a big tee.
Exactly. That's well past. It's like one of those, those trick shot tees, isn't it? When they're about the same height as a regular length putter. But there are certain points when you can say, that's sensible. But no. So there's that. But the problem is, it's a golf forum. So regardless of how much sense anyone makes, because it's against what they originally said, everyone's always wrong. So that's why I don't get involved in them. They're just a bunch of, they're a nightmare. But there you go.
I'm just going for advertising. Free advertising.
Yep. That's a good idea. That's what we can use them for. Just advertise the heck out of it. Right, so have we had anything on the chat which is worth, Azakimbo, hey up. Hey up, Azakimbo. What have we got here? Should we think about a jumbo grip compared to a standard or mid-size and a fitting? Whatever suits what you want. Now, if you've got the option to test them, absolutely do. When I was coaching custom fitting full-time, I had a fair amount of grips, and not just loose grips, because loose grips don't do anything, because obviously you need something inside to, fill it out a little bit, because it's designed exactly to do that. It's supposed to slip over the end of the butt end of a grip, and of course the butt end of a grip is bigger than the core of the rubber grip itself, so it makes it expand a little bit. So I had loads, and I don't know how many I had now, I'm not loads of grips, all of different sizes, all of different textures when it comes to golf prides, all different sizes, and then you had the multi-compounds, all different sizes. And you get sometimes the hybrid ones and the ones, the align grips, or the ones at the back, again, all different sizes. In grips, in cut-off golf shafts as such, so people can feel it. And this is the important thing. What do you like the feel of? Because manufacturers have done this, independent studies have done this, and the only one that I can continuously hear that peddles this information, that grip thickness, grip size changes release patterns, are manufacturers trying to sell you something, whether it be the grip manufacturers trying to sell grips or vice versa or anything else like that. When you test people, actually, there's no correlation, distinct like for like between this, that, and anything else.
And there's a limit of what you can physically play too. Like my hands I got relatively small fingers, so a jumbo grip for me is there's no way I could put a jumbo grip in a good finger grip and wrap enough around the grip to hold it stable. I'm gonna end up with a gap here that is gonna allow the butt to wiggle in. So there's a limit to what size grips I can use. And it's probably the same thing with somebody with big hands. There's going to be a limit to how small the grip can be before they're like having to clench. So
my fingers, I've got quite long fingers compared to my palms.
Yeah.
So
I mean, yeah. So there's a place for all of the grips, right? It's just you're going to have a window in which ones are going to work for you, and you could either side of that window might be fine. Or anywhere in that window might be fine, but once you step outside the window of reasonability, you're going to start having issues.
Yep, absolutely agree, completely. So let's go to the next one. Poor Andy's going to have to explain this one as well, because unfortunately I don't get to spend as much time as I would like on Discord. I try as best I can do to all the time that I get, so when I'm editing, I'm doing my bits and pieces on this screen, so I've got two monitors in front of me and obviously my camera there, and then this is my main editing screen. I've got all my B-roll stuff and all the other stuff that I'll use for editing on this TV in front of me. And when I'm waiting for something to render or something like that, I call a little blue bar, where you set it off and then the little blue bar goes across from 0 to 100%. I use any opportunity I can do to jump on my phone and either answer a YouTube comment or go on Discord and see what's going on there, and effectively trying to answer as many people as I possibly can do. And yes, I will put it out there, I do prioritize the people like the YouTube members, but obviously we're moving away from YouTube members onto website members and website members. So when it comes to Discord, yes, I will prioritize the gold and the members section, obviously, because as far as I'm concerned, they pay for that perk. And so I don't get to spend as much time on there as I would like. However, from what I understand, there's been a couple of queries. We'll call it a query on the heat map tech, which I think Andy knows far more about than I do.
Yeah, it's just a following up from discussions that I think the prop that came today, and it came up today, and it comes up once in a while, and and it's all about the terminology and what is forgiveness, and the real answer is there's no such thing as forgiveness, right? It's a word that's never been defined. It's in the existence of golf.
10K.
And yeah, 10K.
10K.
And so whenever we talk about forgiveness just became the word that means easier, right? That's all it is. It just means easier. This club is easier than that club, in theory. But and people that this makes the assumption that that somehow like an iron especially could compensate for a bad swing. Like your path was way off, or your face to path was way off, and no golf club can ever compensate for those. It doesn't know that it's a bad swing. All it knows is it's pointing that way and it hits the ball.
Yes.
It doesn't know that you wanted to point that way when you hit the ball, and so therefore the club won't do anything differently for those parameters. And the same thing for toe and heel shots. The club itself doesn't know really that's the heel shot, and all it's going to do is react to wherever the center of gravity is relative to that shot.
Yes.
And higher MOI clubs resist twisting by having inertia. Inertia is just a moving object, and an object with mass moving. It's like you
Hmm.
being hit by a car versus being hit by somebody on a bicycle. The
Yeah, I
car
use
is going to go up.
when I was fitting, I used something different. It's like hitting a football against a brick wall, and there's
Yeah,
like a fulcrum right through the middle. You kick a football against a brick wall, just going to come straight back out. It's going to laugh at you. You do it against a polystyrene wall, and it would
right. And
just
you're going
give
to
straight
break
away.
it. But yeah, and like so, it resists the twistingness. But at the end of the day, the twisting amount that you see around the MOI, the axis of axis of inertia, because obviously you have three axes on every golf club, right? You have the front to back, you have the up and down, and you have the left to right. So theoretically, every club has three axes of inertia. We tend not only to think about the two of them, the horizontal and the vertical, but still, the resistance to twisting um, is not going to cause major face-to-path changes. It's going to create minor face-to-path changes, and then it's going to create minor variances in gear effect. Now, that's not to say that if you hit it way off the toe, that the whole club is going to try and rotate in your hands, literally round the shaft. Now, that's not nothing to do with the MOI of the head, because that's still a force acting as a lever on the shaft, and that's still
Yeah.
going to try and fight you. So if you hit it way out of toe, you're going to struggle. You have to have a good grip on the club to fight that.
Mm.
Um, so all those things about MOI and sole thickness and all that, just they're not a measure of anything to do with the club. They're a measure of how the club affects you, and none of those measurements can tell you how that's going to affect you. It can tell you relative to each other a little bit how it's going to do, but it doesn't really tell you much about how it's going to affect you. And the only thing that we decided that the club is impactful on is this ball speed retention. That club is where you hit it, and how fast that ball comes off it is totally to do with the club. It's got nothing to do with you. Um, whatever you're doing face to path wise, we could calculate and adjust that out. But eventually, it comes down to how much energy that club is going to transfer back into the ball to fire it forwards, and
Yeah.
that is something we can directly measure, and that's something that'll be universal for everybody.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's the metric we use is this ball speed retention off miss hits, and then we scale it as a percentage of the total distance so that everybody can know what effect that's going to have on you. If we just say that's going to lose you 5 yards at 150 yards, doesn't really tell you maybe how much you're going to lose at 190 yards. But a percentage is always going to tell you effectively how much every individual person is going to lose. If you hit your club 150 yards, and we tell you you're going to lose 3%, you can calculate how far short that is.
Yeah.
But if we only told you the exact yardage at a specific amount, um, you know, it's not going to tell you anything. So
It's the classic thing, and about no different to initially when I first started doing YouTube. I started doing variable swing speed testing quite early, but again, it's doing the normal swing speed. This is how far it goes and stuff. And the classic comments you get is, well, that's great for someone who swings at 91 miles an hour with a 7-iron. However, I swing at 71 miles an hour with a 7-iron. How is that in any way relatable to me? Just that review's brilliant. Well done for doing it. But I got nothing really from that because I can't, it's just nothing to do with me. So that's why you start doing slower swing speeds. So you do 70, 80, 90 like I do at the moment. But then again, what about for a 75? And then you have, you have to kind of go in between, and it's not ideal because what you'd like to be able to do is to get some form of metric that you can say as a percentage of everything. Just apply this to yours like they do with the heat maps. And then you understand for your swing speed and how you deliver. Now, obviously, we can't do that, but we can with the heat maps. And the heat maps are very, very simple. And the fact that this is the classic, the talk between, okay, so what the difference between a weaker lofted, if you go between a 5 and a 7-iron, depending on, obviously, because no 7-iron is exactly that same number. That's like 34 degrees. It can be 34 or 27. or even 26. Is it the tightest 350 or whatever it is? I can't remember. It was 26 degrees. There are some very, very strong 7-irons out there, and no 7-iron is the same. And so the difficulty with going to say like a 5-iron, say if you've got a weak lofted 7 and then comparing that to a strong lofted 7-iron of say 27 degrees, and then going to a bladed 5-iron of 27 degrees and saying that they're going to be the same. Well, but the heads will, effectively. You're talking about the heads, but it's connected to a completely different thing at a different length. You're playing at a different ball position, for one. You have a completely different ground interaction because of your low point changes when you move ball position. And so the test is now not like for like. And even though the heads can be effectively measured, it's very much so down then to the individual who's wielding the weapon as to how it will work. This is why it's constantly saying, well, I like the idea of one length golf clubs because they're all consistent. And yes, that's true. The problem is there is a reason why there is a conventional length, and it is for ball position changes, for trajectory, and trying to optimize the flight of the golf ball. From a heat map point of view, everything else is adjusted. You can do that kind of thing, no problem whatsoever. What becomes a difficult side of things, at least, is when you go to a 5-iron and you add the extra shaft length. That's where things go wrong. But that's not the heat maps. That's the golfer using the equipment differently as the issue in that way.
I mean, it's interesting. You were talking about how you started swinging at different speeds, and it's almost like we've come full circle now that with the tech that we have and the data that we have, it's almost you wouldn't necessarily have to swing at different speeds because we could simulate what would happen at those different speeds
Self-fit
to within a reason. Yeah, the self-fit tool. And like when you're doing for compares now, we've talked about using compares that you don't actually have to live test both clubs. We've collected the data once, and we can simulate all those live tests pretty accurately.
Yes.
I mean, for somebody like Jay, who's super anal about stuff like that, and for him to be able to say, "Yeah, this is I couldn't hit anything different to this." It just shows you that the metrics are there, and they do work. Because
they do.
We've proven that like you could go hit a data set, plug it into the self-fit, and it's not going to be far away.
No, because the great thing with the self-fit, and better than me, is because I'm not a robot, and generally speaking, I'm fairly decent at being able to do what we do on the channel fairly repetitively for a human being, but I'm not a robot. And this is where you see the variances slightly between a 70, 80 and 90 mile an hour swing speed against what is optimal from a robot's point of view. That's what effectively the self-fit tool does. You plug in your speed, you plug in your angle attack, you plug in your shaft lean, and the simulated flight basically assumes you're going to hit it smack out of the middle, because again, the golf clubs have been measured for face speed, etc. Obviously, the fact that you're not going to have any face-to-path differences, it's basically measuring what happens is the optimal flight. Now, I can get quite close to those on my 70, 80 and 90 mile an hour tests. The problem is I can't get exactly on them because, again, I'm human, and so I mess up. So what people think was, oh, hang on a minute, it's not a then fair test. Well, it is, because if you imagine me then testing one golf club against the next, the greatest thing with the self-fit tool is it doesn't matter if I've got a slight fade or a slight draw, or I hit the golf ball slightly low on the face all the time. What the self-fit tool does is it compares two golf clubs, and regardless of what I do as a human wrong, the two golf clubs, the differences will still be exactly the same. And so if one golf club has a propensity to hit it lower and another golf club has a propensity to hit it higher or longer or whatever it would be, regardless of what I do as a human being, the differences between those two golf clubs will still be exactly the same. And that's why the self tool is great, and that's why I still need to make a swing robot, because I need to do it for the drivers, because my poor body's not going to last.
That'll be a topic for an upcoming podcast, maybe.
Oh, that is another topic and a half. That is a YouTube series, I potentially may think. Building how much did we say? How do we figure out that these swing robots cost?
The $100,000 ones?
Yeah, those ones then, about 100,000.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much they are, if they're 100 grand
Yeah.
or whatever they are.
And they don't know. Nobody would tell you unless you actually plan on buying one. And by that time, it's like too late. You're committed.
A lot.
Hmm.
Right, so some questions before we go over to the next topic. So Ryan F said, is there a fitter you can recommend in the UK? There is a real lack of quality fitting options out there. Yes, there is. Initially, there was a little thing that I was starting to do probably a couple of years back now when I very first went YouTube full time. So yeah, probably 2.5 years ago or so. So let's say a couple of years ago. I attempted to start to create a database as such of fitting outlets which fit the way again, it's all opinion based, but I feel was respectful to the golfer, and they didn't do things in a selling way. They did things the right way by using the equipment which the manufacturers provide. One massive thing for me was the swing DNA tool, because again, it is the best fitting tool for understanding shaft deflection of any manufacturer I've ever made. And it's free if you're an account holder, so why wouldn't you use it? Well, there is a reason, what I've said before, but the problem is, very, very quickly, I realized the distinct lack of individuals that are actually honest. I'm not naming names, the whole idea of I'm not naming names, but it didn't take me long before the phone calls kept going and I explained what I'm trying to do. And then I basically just asked them how they do certain things and let them explain. I was just quiet, just letting them go on. That I realised it is a minefield out there. And unfortunately, there are a lot of mines. The best thing that people can do is learn from channels like this what is the right way, what is the wrong way, and if you go into anywhere and you detect the slightest little bit of something that smells a bit fishy, either walk out, or commonly, I don't expect you to walk out, just take what they say with a pinch of salt and use the experience for a bit of fun. At the end of it, information is key. That's the most important thing. The information is key. Knowledge about how things work, how things don't. This is why obviously we do what we do, to try and give that information and knowledge out there. Is the best tool that you guys can have to make sure that you do not get absolutely done over.
Yeah.
Because
golf
equipment costs.
You have to be able to take in what they're saying, right? I mean, results are results, and results. If you end up walking away with good results, you walk away with good results. But at the same time, if they can't explain to you why that's producing a good result, or give you some kind of logical thing to it, it could just come down to that's how the best one you swung that day, and if you go away the next day and you swing it a little bit differently, what was that?
3 times.
2?
If you have the opportunity to, make sure, if you can, if you're at a place where you don't necessarily completely 100% trust the fitter and what's going on, if you have the possibility of testing that same club in that same spec 3 times, because once is just once, 2 is a coincidence, 3 is a pattern.
Yeah, and like I said, if you can't walk away and understand why that club worked for you on that day, and then you pursue different results, then you're never going to know why something's working for you or what you have to practice, because unless you're just constantly having lessons. And yes, some people don't mind constantly having lessons, but a lot of people don't have time for that kind of commitment.
Or money.
Yeah, money too.
It costs money to do that. So yeah, it's the most important thing with any kind of custom fit. And I would always say this when I first started. I wouldn't have to do it as much, obviously, if they knew me anyway, but from the odd occasion when I used to have people that didn't know me at all, because they're not on YouTube or anything else like that, it was important for me to basically say, like, how much information do you want to know? I can give you ins and outs of a duck's backside, or I can basically say, Bob, this is what you need. Now, most people would sit on the fence. They go, oh, I don't know. but very, very quickly you'd work out what kind of individual they are, and very, very quickly, on the general speaking, people actually start enjoying themselves learning. And as soon as they start understanding certain terminology and how they do certain things, because the important thing is not just understanding what you're buying, you need to understand why you are buying it, which is the most important thing. There you go. So, Chris Parsons. Hi guys, I want to throw darts within 150, but fire rocks beyond. My whole P7.
Yeah, P770's balloon. I mean, if you're ballooning with any club, that should tell you that straight away you're overlofting your club, right? Rockets, fire rockets.
Oh, that is funny.
So, I mean, the 770 is a high loft. I mean, the I230s would be worse, right? Those are going to balloon even worse than the 770s.
I230s have got a decent spin rate. They spin fairly well. So if you are a ballooner, then necessarily you're looking for something that doesn't spin like that. Obviously, this is massively dependent on speed. If you are medium speed but deliver huge amounts of loft, then you're going to spend so much energy going that way and not that way, as opposed to the guy who's got huge speed.
Yeah, I mean, if you're ballooning a 770, I would automatically assume that you're delivering a fair amount of speed to get it to balloon. I mean, most things don't balloon unless you're delivering more speed than the launch angle likes.
This is on the assumption, and apologies to this, Chris, because I've seen it before, and I'm not saying Chris does or does not know, but a lot of golfers have said to me that they balloon their irons, they hit them too high, they climb too much and stuff, and what they perceive as ballooning is
normal flight.
Yeah, is that their initial launch angle's far too high because they're delivering too much loft.
Oh, that's
and
it.
So that is, I don't know of many golfers that properly balloon their flights, as in launching within a certain mediocre window and then instantly go vroom, like that. That is a very, very unique delivery with plenty of speed. So, but I mean, that's, again, for Chris, that is what the self-fit tool does. Where's Chris? Hang on, I can't, it's on this side for me. That's what the self-fit tool does on the website, www.askgolfnut.com. You can put all your swing dynamics in there. That will give you the spin rates that you're going to projected for those irons in question, and not only just the I230 and the I530, but the P770s and the P790s and every single other of the 60 or so plus irons to date that is on the database, so you can actually see how they will work for you.
Yeah, and I mean, the definition of ballooning is any time the flight angle increases over launch angle, right? So that's what you're looking
yeah,
at.
well, yeah, because that's a lot of trajectories then technically balloon.
True. I mean, yeah, it depends on your speed, but yeah, for the most, I mean, drivers especially, you'll always see a slight increase in flight angle. Irons less so, right? But
yeah, we're talking a lower spin rate, but we are talking a very much faster ball speed.
Yes.
So lift creates from that point of view. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one I did want to, just before we go over to the other one, was Paul Clanner says, great content, by the way. Thanks. Thanks for the stats. Question I have is flex. I'll let Andy answer this one, and I'll pipe in a little bit on the end of it. I'm on the cusp between regular and senior flex due to a slower swing speed. What would the implications to my game be from flicking between regular and senior flex? What do you think?
What could the implications be? Any implications? There's the whole gamut of implications. So if you go down a flex, so you go from regular to senior flex, and that flex, if you were already delivering the maximum amount of deflection with the regular flex and you went down a flex, it can't deliver more deflection. What it'll do is actually bounce backwards, and you'll end up with a lower, less spinny flight. So depending on how you're offending the flex that you're moving from is going to determine the effects of the other flex more than saying going from regular to senior is going to give you more height, more spin. It depends on the dynamics of the shaft that you're in to be what the difference to the shaft that you're going to will be.
Yep. So commonly, I fitted seniors a lot, and there's a huge variation in senior golfers. Now, on that one, Paul said about just the difference in speed. We don't know the speed, but put it this way: in seniors especially, there is the understanding at least that as you get older, you need to get more whippy. Your flex needs to come down, because we all talk about flex. We don't ever speak in bend profiles, but bend profile is by far the most important with weight, class, etc. Now, when you find you get older, and we're all getting older, what you'll find is, yes, very much so. What you'll find is that as you get older, into your 60s, let's say, and it is obviously different for everybody, but let's go into the 60s. What you'll find is that your swing speed will reduce. Can't help that. That is not due to you losing power. You're still relatively strong. What happens when you get older, you lose range of motion. That's the biggest thing when you get older. You initially lose range of motion, not the power, the range of your body to move. And so because you've still got the same acceleration curve as such, but you don't accelerate over that same distance, the relative speed changes. But it also means how you offend the shaft massively changes. And the amount of times that I have had quite considerable improvements from a senior golfer who swings slower but has got still power, rather than going down the route of going from their regular flex shaft to their senior flex shaft because they see their speed coming down, you go to a stiffer bend profile and you think, what?
Huh? What?
Because what happens is when you measure someone, because of the golfer in question, smaller range of motion, but still got speed, they offend the shaft more. They actually bend the shaft more. So what you end up getting is, I won't bore you with shaft cycling, but you actually end up losing speed going with the whippier shaft. And by going into a more of a sturdy profile, you then put more of that speed into the golf ball. And you make them straighter, which is a win-win. But to do that, you've got to get custom fit, and you've got to be measured. Because I'm not saying every single golfer do that.
Yeah, could you make the argument that with strength remaining but range of motion limited, that you, by actually giving them a stiffer shaft, it could promote them to swing harder with less range of motion? They actually have the power left over that they're not utilizing. That if they have a really whippy shaft, you can't put any more power into it, otherwise you're just going to get very inconsistent results.
Yes.
But you go stiffer, it allows them to swing harder for that limited range of motion.
Yep. Every part of that, yep. the years that I have done that is crazy. Just seeing how many times a senior golfer, and now okay, if you're talking someone who's 87, who's definitely, shall we say, more in the departure lounge of their golfing career, yes, I don't necessarily see them going to a stiffer shaft to make all the difference. No, unfortunately, age is a predator which stalks us all. But from a certain portion of golfers, especially within that senior, I'm past 50.
And does it even get to senior? I mean, we all lose joint motion, like what, 40s onwards? Like, we're starting to see joint motion becoming more of a problem. But, we not losing muscle mass necessarily then.
No.
So, yeah.
That's the biggest
I mean,
problem. This is why you see female golfers and male golfers massively different depending on their age. Huge.
yeah, that
It's
female golfers are much better in their ages. You know, they tend
yeah.
to not drop off as much.
No, they've got more elastin and
I'm gonna struggle when I lose my flexibility because that's all my swing is.
yep. Range of motion acceleration. When you're down to someone normal, you're going to be down in the old senior flex before you know it. Eero says, what happened to the unicorn shaft? Being honest, I haven't done all the testing that I need to do it, unfortunately. I've got so much to do. I've got so many compares that I need to do, that I have to do. I'm doing at the moment, I'm doing the 923 Forge against the 925 Forge. I filmed that video today. I still have to do the numbers side, but that is a very interesting video. Very much so down to the 925 Hot Metal, 923 Hot Metal series, the improvements they've made from one iteration to the next. I personally feel behind the scenes, as such, when I say that, behind the scenes on a live broadcast to everybody, that I feel Mizuno have put themselves into a little bit of an interesting situation with the 925s.
Nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. Nowhere to go but down.
It's the problem is in their push to be the best and do the best they can, or whatever the conversation they had around the big old oval table about what to do with his next series, rather than saying, right guys, we're doing well, let's just make the 925 better, not too much better, just make it a little bit better. And then Bob, or Brian, whichever one you want to be picking on, has gone and took that information and gone, we'll be the judge of that. And they've just made the best iron they can. And now it's a problem. So,
I mean, we could argue that maybe Strixon fell into that hole. You know,
with the Mark IIs.
The Mark IIs was so good that any technological performance increase was almost out of the question. And we've seen that the new head sizes are as thinned down as they possibly could make them.
Yes.
And that's the direction they went. But whenever you lose mass like that, around the toe area, on the top line, that's going to affect, your center of gravities, and that's going to affect performance. And that's like maybe the hole they were in. They couldn't get any better performance, so they said, okay, let's try and keep as close to the performance as we can and make them thinner. And that's what they did. But that still came with a bit of, okay, we've lost some forgiveness factor here. I mean,
the 7 and 5, they did fine. And when I say fine, it's
we're within the realms of whatever.
They've moved around a little bit. They swapped a little bit for this or a bit of that. So from a little bit of toe to a little bit more heel and stuff like this. But effectively, there's not. Yeah, they've bobbed and weaved to make a head which is different but remarkably similar. And more than anything else, I haven't done the ZXi 4. So for the update for the ZXi 4, the old iron that I had with the question mark has gone back to Strixon for it to be dismantled and x-rayed and whatever they do with irons to make sure they understand what was going on with that iron. I am still waiting for my replacement. So that hasn't come through yet, and until that happens, I obviously can't then do all the data sets required to do the numbers side of the video. I've done the first part of the video, but obviously can't do the numbers side until that one comes along. So as soon as that one comes along, I will obviously get that one done as a point of priority. For Ski 350, interested in the ZXi update as well. So that answers. And Paul Clanner's gone, what? Crazy stuff, talking about the driver swing speeds and
there's no rules, there's no hard fast rules. You can't say, oh yeah, if I swing slower I need a softer shaft. That's, you could have my swing length and barely offend the shaft the whole way and end up with really high club head speed versus somebody that only goes like 3/4 back and has the same club head speed. Completely different shaft profile with the exact same club head. with the exact same club head speed. So it's the same with senior. What you do to get the club head speed is far more important than the actual club head speed.
Yes, and well, Andy, you'll know this more probably than I do because you probably, especially nowadays, probably spend more time looking at EI curves than I do. I used to know them all off the top of my head, and I still do know quite a few off the top of my head. But obviously, as time goes on, as the years go on, and different iron shafts get taken out, new ones get added in, I haven't kept up
Yeah,
to date.
I mean, but generally the overall profiles haven't changed. They haven't invented many new profiles in the last decade. It's just different label on the same profile usually, but
Yeah. So, what I would say as a general understanding of, if you look at, let's say you look at tour players, John Rahm's a perfect example. Yeah. John Rahm, very short swing, relatively, very, very powerful, generates a bucket load of speed. But he does that on the basis of offending that shaft rather harshly. Yes.
very mean to it.
Very poor shaft. It will need to be fairly stiff. Then if you go to the likes of, say, Ernie Els or someone who generates very, very similar swing speed, it's just a case does it a completely different way. It's a much more of a generating over a longer and more deliberate acceleration curve than just basically bludgeoning it to death. Now, the shafts that they have are different, but it's not hugely different. And what you'll find is when you look at unless you're talking about some severely weird ones, when you're looking at like long drive, that's not what I'm talking about. But if you look at the shafts used on tour, they range, yes they do. But if you look at the shafts that they range then from a point of view of the retail sector, and where you go from senior flex all the way to extra stiff, and the amount of choice that the end user has, and they all have different varying amount of swing speed and how much they pull on it more than anything else, how much they offend it regardless of their swing speed. The difference within shafts that you can get from a retail point of view is colossal. And so how any one golfer, depending on exactly how they offend the shaft, can have huge differences on how a shaft will interact with their swing, because of the massive differences between bend profiles, between different manufacturers' understanding of what stiff flex is. Everyone talks about flex, but it's nothing to do with flex, it's more about bend profile, because it's different manufacturers have a different understanding of what they perceive as stiff or regular or extra stiff or senior, and there's no standard. So again, it's imperative that you get properly measured, get properly fitted. I have Eros asked Andy, any chance you can comment on how that impacts my swing? We said potentially the lack of bend profile could be a swing speed detriment. Do you understand what Eros saying?
Yeah, so he sent me some new data of his rain session the other day, and he had his ZXI 5s in his 110 steel fibers. And then he had a G430 6 hybrid, which is in the standard ping chrome. And he had like the club head speed between irons was way below what I know, the 2 to 3 miles an hour window, is only what I expect to see between irons. And he was like, early on it was like a 1.5, but then between I think his 8 and his 7, it was only like half a mile an hour difference. And but then his 6 hybrid suddenly jumped up 4 miles an hour, way beyond the normal expectation that I would have from the shaft length difference. So I was talking to him about how the steel fiber being 110 being an extremely stiff profile, like really, really, stiff butt, stiff, from the midpoint. It's a high kick point with a very stiff, that it'd be really hard to fully load that shaft to get maximum kick velocity. And if you're getting zero kick velocity, you're losing potentially 3 miles an hour club head speed. And
Doesn't also Hero run longer?
Yeah, he learned. Yeah, so that's the kind of the problem he's dealing with is that he's longer. So if he doesn't have heavy shafts, then he runs into swing weight problems. But at the same time, it's finding the balance of we can adjust to swing weight, while still reducing total weight and the profile. So I think we bring it down. I mean, he's already running 110 graphites, which is it's heavy for a graphite, but it's light for an iron in general. But that maybe finding something with a bit more kick velocity and a little bit lighter is going to get him more club head speed variance between his irons. It's going to allow him to swing it faster. Whereas right now it's kind of like he's struggling with the total weight and the swing weight to the point where he can't accelerate the longer clubs anymore, or he feels he can't. But then he switched to the hybrid and he was able to gain 5 miles an hour with the hybrid. So it's not a limit to his body because he's obviously producing the swing speed with the hybrid. So it's not his body's the problem; it's his senses or the feedback from the shaft or the shaft having no kick velocity. So,
with you
looking at a profile that's actually more is going to give him better club head speed variance.
There you go. Answer from Andy in person. Right, so next one. This is a two-part kind of thing. This is.
What is disco music for?
Yeah. What are grooves there for? So let's discount any form of drivers with grooves or whatever different things we've had in the past. Let's also ignore fairway woods and hybrids with grooves. Again, ignore that. We are talking about irons and we are talking about wedges as well. It would be an interesting thing, guys, you put in the comments in your chat down there what you feel grooves do for you, what you feel. Yeah, and what
other than make you dance.
And whatever you think the TV, media, or any other form of, it could be YouTube, it could be online publications, or anything else like that, what you feel that they would have you believe what grooves do, how important they are, and what do they actually do to the ball. Because I have my idea on it. When I say idea, I've tested this over many moons, but it doesn't matter how many videos you make, you are one person against a whole industry full of people telling you different things. So I'm not going to be of the case if you can't beat them, join them. I don't like that, but it is one of those ones, if you can't beat them, understand how much influence you're going to have trying to change people's minds when you can't. But so the main thing on there is what is grooves? What are grooves? What do they do? How important are grooves, let's say, on an iron or a high lofted iron or whatever it be? Now, Andy, what we got? Eero says grooves move the dirt and matter
cheating.
out
He already
of the
read
way.
the answers. He already knows the answers. He's been told the answer.
Oh, has he? That's cheating. Yeah. So, and there's a lot of, and the great thing with Discord is because different people. I mean, YouTube is brilliant as well. Obviously, you have the comment section and stuff, but it is not as interactive. And this is the thing. That's why Discord's amazing, because obviously you can send pictures and you can send attachments, different swings and stuff like that. There's so many different things on Discord that you can do, obviously, which is so restrictive on YouTube. And the great thing also with the fact that you've got Discord, and there is a link to Discord in the description of this video. You can have a look at that one if you want to. The grooves are there primarily to dissipate matter. Think of them like tires treads on a car when you go through a puddle. Now obviously if the tire tread isn't tall enough and you can't channel that amount of water away to get the contact patch touching the ground, you will get effectively aquaplaning. It cannot move that mass quick enough, and then effectively you don't get the touch. So in this case, obviously it's not aquaplaning from that point of view, it is the ball and the face making contact. And so that is why it's so important to have clean grooves, not for the generation of spin. The difference between, let's just imagine you're looking at a dry contact from a mat, let's say a mat. If you fill the grooves up with dirt and stuff, against completely clean grooves on a mat, so no extra material in the way, the difference in actual spin generation is marginal, absolutely marginal, because there is, not say next to no, there is a certain amount, especially on certain wedges with those hyper sharp, this, that and everything else, there is a small amount, but it's still primarily there to dissipate matter. You put that same situation of the iron or wedge with clogged up grooves into a situation where you have even a fairway, even fairway, even rough, where you've got matter trapped between there, and of course they're full. You cannot put any more mass in there. You will get one heck of a weird contact, that spin's coming off, and you will see that ball fly. Now, wedges not too much of a problem. They do get flyers on wedges. If you're hitting an 8-iron and you do not have clean grooves and you're in a rough situation, or even, fairways in the UK aren't the best mown areas in the world, and so you can quite easily get grass trapped between the golf ball and on a fairway, you can. And you can get a flyer. And this is where people get it wrong, saying, oh, my golf clubs are inconsistent, they don't hit the golf ball the same distance, I feel like I put the same swing on it and stuff like that. And they miss a ridiculously vital part of your grooves. Your grooves are not there to generate spin. It's there to channel the crap from the shot that you're hitting, because the golf course that you play on may not be the best, or you might be in the rough.
So, I mean, going back to the car analogy, which is a pretty good analogy for the grooves and what the grooves are designed for, is the same analogy as why race cars use slick, they're called slick tires, but they're just flat. They're not really slick. The whole point of them is they're the opposite of slick. They're super, super sticky. Now, that's what I think most people misunderstand, is that a smooth surface doesn't have to be a polished surface.
No.
Now, if you have a polished surface, that's deliberately removing the imperfections of the surface so it reflects. A polished surface is bad for spin. Yes. A flat surface isn't necessarily bad for spin. The rubber tire the surface of a rubber tire is like the surface of the moon when magnified.
Yes, I stand
valleys. Yeah, but then also the smooth surface gets hot, which makes it sticky, and you've got more surface that is sticky. So that is why race tires, when it's dry, are smooth, flat, not smooth,
yes,
but it's flat, in order to increase the amount of contact area with the ground, and that's what the iron, the surface of an iron is actually, if you zoom in, is extremely jagged. Yeah, metal always has, unless you polish it. So don't ever polish it. If you're getting like a polishing cloth that's polished, like spray polish, polishing up your irons, don't ever put it on the face of your iron. That'll ruin your iron real quick.
These guys, yes, it is Mizuno, just because I've got it round here. I've probably got other ones round here, but this, see that thing there? The worst thing you can ever do not clean your golf club with that. Because if you, over a period of time, use this to clean your grooves out, you're not just cleaning your grooves out, obviously that's that big, and so you are going over the entire thing. What you'll find over a period of time, you use these things and they will basically polish your golf clubs. And so not only will you dull your grooves, you'll dull the actual surface of the golf club. And if you have ever wondered why golf clubs, and of course most manufacturers now are making it much more visible by having like micro laser etched grooves in between, because obviously it's trying to jump on the bandwagon of increasing spin. So it's not, it's just visible tech of the tech which they've always had. They've always had very rough, relatively, obviously there's a certain level, obviously everything is kept within the limits of golf, etc. But it's there to maximize the abrasive properties of a face. If you look at a wedge, and this is probably the last thing I'll probably say on it, because it's probably the easiest thing to understand. When you have a wedge, 58 degree or anything else like that, one of the irons or one of the wedges which is commonly known to give the most amount of spin of all of your golf clubs. When you look at your 58 or 60, doesn't matter, and you see all the vertical scratches that you get from going through divots, going through bunkers and going through everything else, what you'll find is, regardless of how good the grooves are and how sharp the grooves are, as soon as you start getting those vertical scratches, and you can see them quite easily, your spin rates start to drop off quite quickly. And that is because as soon as those grooves go in line with the direction of the ball is going, as opposed to perpendicular to it, which is what the face mini grooves are, or all the abrasion is, spin just drops off. And again, it's nothing to do with grooves, it's to do with face abrasion. Last thing I'm saying.
Yeah. And then you can kind of prove this to yourself in a way. You get 2 sheets of paper, and you put 2 sheets of paper flat against each other. And with a little bit of weight on it, try to pull the one underneath it out. It's extremely difficult because paper has a super rough texture.
Yep.
And that's why we use paper for ink, because it grabs the ink off the pen as you go along. And it's the same thing with the face. It's not the grooves, it's the actual surface of the iron that has the texture that grips the ball for spin. The grooves don't add any more spin.
Last one, that's it. Right, cool. We've done that one. And so, as normal, we will fit the last little part of our wondrous podcast devoted to you guys. Chatty questions.
Flooding in now. Now that we've shut up, they'll be like, oh
yeah. They won't do anything. Right, I'm going to go all the way to the start because I can, just to make sure there's nothing that we necessarily missed. Probably is. So Eero does say, Jay, the JPX Forge seems like one of the best all-round clubs in the database. Can you explain a bit why best from a radar map might not be the best for an individual? Okay, so radar map will give you an understanding of how good the golf club is. Hang on a second. Let's see if I can hang on a second on this one.
Open a radar map.
No, I just want to see if I can hang on. Copy that one. This is where it'd be much better if there was actually.
Production manager.
Yeah. So Andy, you just chat, and will try and.
Yeah. I mean, but I'll
where you're supposed to fill.
I'll cover the one point. Like, where's that question? I'm not gonna look at it. Overall, the JPX 925 Forge seems rather good in a lot of the categories. It ticks a lot of mainline boxes, and obviously, the more faults you have, the more check boxes you have on the club, the more likely that club is going to fit more people. So, from a standpoint, it's one of the best all-round clubs. Yeah, it's definitely one of the best all-round clubs. And hopefully Jay will cover the other side of the question, is why it might not be the best club for you, even though it's one of the best all-round clubs.
Right, so very quickly, apologise for the ropey graphics, but that is effectively, that's not quite formatted right, but there you go. Right, that is the radar chart as of the review that I did for the radar chart against the average to what the JPX 925 Forged is. Now we'll see the average will change based on the fact that, with all the different... Yes, all the different irons that we review, that will change the average. And of course, the values of the Mizuno JPX 925 Forge iron will also change because they are all relative to that. If you have an iron which then just excels in heel or excels in low, it moves everything relatively to it. So obviously this is why it's a live thing. This is of old, and so it will not necessarily be exactly the same as if the website members go onto the silver tier. You can see on the left hand side you've got your tiers there. You've got your bronze, your silver and your gold, and of course you've got your overlay of your drivers and your irons, even more drivers coming. And of course you've got your silver data, your advanced data, and your radar, and of course self-fit tool, etc. for the gold. But this is from the silver tier. Now, what you'll see here, don't worry about the ones on the right-hand side where you've got the toe, heel, low, forgiveness, and even necessarily face speed. But the main thing that I want to show you is the ones at the 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and 9 o'clock positions, the one on the left-hand side. The face spin rate and launch factor. Probably not easy for you to see because it's quite small. Should have formatted it bigger, but there you go. I didn't have much time. So on that, you can see that you're looking at different, for the JPX 925 Forged, they are fairly average when you're looking at launch factor and face spin rate at this time. But you don't get all golf clubs like that. Some golf clubs launch really, really high. Some golf clubs launch really, really low. Loft adjusted, remember, this is all loft adjusted, and then no different face spin rate. How much the golf club spins the golf ball, relative loft for loft adjusted. Now, of course, a lot of the time that's CG relevant as well. So when you have a high launch factor, so the golf ball launches really high, commonly you have a low face spin rate as well. But again, you do have, sometimes you do have a little bit of anomalies here and there for whatever reason. But effectively what you're looking at is for golfers that say hit the golf ball really low because they deliver this, deliver that, whatever it be, then unless they want to go through all the ball ache of getting their swing change, especially if they swing quite well, and they just want to get a little bit more height, then they can go search through the 60 or so plus irons on AskGolfNut.com and look for irons which have a really high launch factor. And of course, that's just one metric of different things that they need, no different to if they know exactly where to hit on the face, if they know they're a predominant heel striker or toe striker or low striker. There are golf clubs out there on the list that do a very, very good job in those specific locations. And so that's the whole idea of the information there. So even though forgiveness is one thing, etc., the main thing that you've got to understand from all the information that we collect for the database on AskGolfNut.com is that you're looking at forgiveness is great to have. Who wouldn't want more forgiveness? But they're absolutely launch characteristics, launch parameters that are very much so down individual to the golfer. And necessarily having a really good or really low is not neither good or bad, depending on if you need them or don't. And so that's why it's important. We don't necessarily rate them.
Almost comes full circle about AOA.
Yes. Back to the golf rant.
A number and a value isn't necessarily good or bad. It depends on what you want and what where you are. It's like...
Absolutely. Right. So I'm just having another look through. Look for all of the different chats now to make sure that I haven't missed out anyone. Eero says Jay still has a flip phone. I did have a flip phone. So the last time I had a flip phone, I had a Motorola Razr, and that was in 2006. Then, I can't remember, no, it was before then. I can't remember. No, it was after, no, it was way before then, wasn't it? I had the Matrix phone. Remember the Matrix phone? You press the button, it like that. I had the Matrix phone. Eero says Andy has 5 drivers. He has, I think he's got that many. Yeah, how many drivers have you got?
Well, I have lots of heads just for my fit collection, but I
have an excuse. I have.
I went through a period where I was doing a lot of internal experimentation, and I needed to experiment on different things, and I bought everything cheap secondhand, like finding driver heads for like $80 a pop. Like I didn't care what condition they were; I just wanted to test them, and so I bought a lot of heads.
Cool Movie says I got classic lofts and very accurate up to 160 yards. But recently, it is noticeable everyone at the range using lofts a lot stronger. That is the way of time, unfortunately. Things have moved on from 37-degree 7-irons, and now they are more likely to have 27-degree 7-irons. Obviously, CG locations have changed massively as well, so there is a reason why lofts have got stronger and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, yeah, we've gone through there. The main thing is there's a range, and they all fit different people.
Yeah, I think the key there is to understand launch factor. Back to the radar chart, understanding what launch factor is. It's the amount of launch angle you get as a percentage of your delivered loft.
Yes.
Now, we see clubs in the range of like 68%, I think, up to like 81, 82%. And that might not seem a big deal, but it's a fifth.
Yeah.
right? So it's a fifth of your delivered loft as launch angle. So
Mm.
if you're delivering 26 degrees of loft, a fifth of that is a lot
Well,
of
it's like
additional
100
launch.
degrees of loft. The difference between something that launches at 67 degrees and something that launches at 83 degrees.
Right.
It's
So
huge.
the fact that these strong lofted irons are able to launch the ball 3 to 4 degrees higher
Mm-hmm.
means they're playing a club's worth of, like, they're getting launch as if the club was the 4 degrees
Yeah,
higher.
of the 31 degree 7 iron.
But because their static loft is lower, they get the smash factor benefit
Yep.
of the stronger iron, but still produce the same launch parameters. Yes, there is a trade-off here in spin, but unless you're struggling with spin, higher launch and higher speed will produce descent angle
Yep.
great enough that spin is no longer an issue.
Yep. Spin
You,
is there.
you
Remember, guys, spin is there not at all for stopping power. Don't in any way, shape, or form think that spin is there for stopping the golf ball. The only time that is a factor, any time that is a factor, is only in lob wedges, 50 degrees, 54s, pitching wedges to potential, maybe even a 9 iron if you're very fast swinging, because obviously speed and spin is related. For the vast majority of golfers, and we are talking even into like 50 degrees for a medium swing speed golfer and upwards, spin is there for consistency of flight. That is it. Don't think of spin for any form of stopping power. So even if the spin is low or lowish, as long as it's consistently like that, you will get a consistent trajectory effectively. Now, Andy, do you have a thought there in your head?
No, I was just I was just going to expand on why spin isn't as important as
Cool.
descent angle and stopping angle, because as the ball comes down, its first move is to bounce. Now, if it bounces and it's in the air, spin isn't slowing it down,
Yeah.
right? It's only when it's in contact with the ground that spin can have any effect on slowing the ball down.
Yeah.
Now, the the steeper the angle, descent angle, it's going to bounce, but it's not going to travel as far between bounces.
Yep.
And then, so the shallower the angle, the more it's going to bounce, the more it's going to travel between bounces. And if it's traveling a long way between bounces, and spin can't do anything while it's in the air,
Yep.
spin is not as important as the descent angle.
True.
Now, you can have, more spin on your iron is like, you might be able to get it to bounce once, bounce twice, and then by the third bounce, which is still hopefully close to the pin, if there's enough residual spin, it might spin back a little bit. But that really isn't like predictable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's tiny
like
amounts.
that's
It's
not it's not
ridiculously tiny.
predictable, and it depends on the slope of the green. It could end up spinning sideways away from the flag just as much as
Yeah.
spin towards the flag.
Yes.
So I mean, that famous Tiger out of the bunker shot, right? Where,
What, the 9 iron?
yeah, like the helicopter shot, the
Yeah.
ball landed really really steep because he hit a massive slice on it, and it came in at like 60
Yeah.
degrees. It bounced, hit bounced
Yeah.
once and then spun sideways, and it just happened to
Yes.
be that's where the pin was. So he ended up really close.
Yeah.
But the spin direction, depending on the slope of the green, could pull you in different directions. So spin having like, oh, you got to have the 7 iron spinning 7,000, otherwise you can't stop it. No,
No.
7 iron spinning 7,000 is based on the old school lofts, and that was just a
Yes.
target for a decent delivery that meant you were in the right spin window. But those days have long gone. 5,000 is plenty of spin off a 7 iron with a decent descent angle. If you're above
Yeah.
45 and 5,000, it's
You
not
haven't
going
got
to
to
make any
worry.
difference.
Haven't
Yeah.
got to worry whatsoever. Not at all. Right, what have we got? Done that one there. People need to realize you play at 70 to 90% of your limit. Otherwise, you're on the limit and making mistakes.
Depends. I mean, I'm most consistent when I
Yeah.
swing at my, not limit. like I can swing faster, but I swing full speed, and I know that my full speed swing is going to do this, and I'm more consistent swinging at that speed than laying off a little. If I try to lay off, actually, that's where I start having face the path issues. But I can
from my
understand what you kind of saying is that you don't
yes.
expect to always always expect to hit your maximum distance.
So from an amateur's point of view, when you're first learning, or even experienced but not really that experienced, how many times have you seen people hit shots at the range? They're hitting shots and they're falling forward. Yeah, and their balance is wrong. They're not right at all, and they're not even hitting it massively hard or anything else like that. They've just got poor balance, and they're just not ever settled. They're not stable and within their swing, and they're moving all over the place. They can't keep a nice still finish, so they've got no control in that sense. It's the club is doing things to them rather than them telling the club to do stuff. And so it's very similar to like a junior when you first get them at the age of 4, 5 and 6, and they swing and they pirouette afterwards because the club is so heavy compared to and they've got no control whatsoever. They just spin round. And so absolutely, yes, it is imperative that people swing within themselves that they can control, so they can actually have a swing which they can repeat at a certain speed and have control of that club head all the way through, from in transition, from accelerating that thing up to its whatever speed it gets to and slowing it back down in a controlled manner. That is very, very, very much golfer dependent. Some golfers absolutely will be better at swinging a much closer to 100%, because as long as they don't go past that, as long as they don't get to a point of where they feel that they're just unleashing fury, then they can repeat the same over and over and over again. As soon as you go past it, again, for the people which are very, very much close to their top end anyway, it is much like a cliff edge. They'll know very quickly that they've gone too quick, and it doesn't. And commonly as well, that they'll find that it's not actually, when you look at the speed generated from quad or TrackMan or whatever, they've put in a lot more effort, but no extra result. And so they've just put too much effort in, nothing actually happened, they've just got out of balance, out of sync, and there it all goes wrong. However, there are a lot of golfers that swing anywhere between 70 and 90%. They actually swing faster. They could actually swing, I would never say slower. I am a fan of never getting anyone to swing slower. There is no benefit at all in getting anyone to swing slower than they're capable of doing. Swing as fast as you possibly can do and control that golf club, because speed absolutely is key, and you need as much speed as absolutely possible to get that golf ball going down there as far as you can, because if you can get that golf ball going down there 20 yards further off the tee, as long as it's in play, your scores will reduce. It's proven through that you can't get away from it. Distance is directly correlated to handicap.
And the reason why, why like that's true is because it's the length of distance that's left on your second shot, and how accurate you are for that second shot. If you can hit if the hole is exactly like double the length of your first shot, however accurate with your first shot, it's important to be that accurate with your second shot. But in most cases, the second shot's a lot shorter than the first shot, so you can afford to be less accurate with the first shot to gain distance, so that the second shot is even shorter and where you're even more accurate.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter where it finishes, if it's in the rough, if it's in the fairway. Statistically, if it is longer, you will be, on average, better off, and your score is directly linked to distance.
And a follow-up to a little bit to what you said about balance and stuff. I have 2 swing sets that's floating around on Discord. I think it's even in the tee box now. It's moved up over time from like gold.
It's disappearing slowly.
Well, no, I mean it went from only gold members to members to now
right.
It's in the tee box as time goes on.
Anyone can see it.
There's a second set where I'm wearing a red shirt and shorts. Is when I swapped to my new irons. That data set is when I swapped to my new irons, and it had the lighter shafts that I wasn't used to. Yeah. And you can see that some of those swings I end up stepping forward afterwards because I'm not used to the timing. My timing was off slightly, and I'd end up like stepping forward ever so slightly at the end of the swing. Whereas the previous data set, I think, was in my old clubs, much
You
more
went quite
imbalanced.
considerable difference though, didn't you? So
Well, yeah, I mean that's before I changed them out. When I first got them, and they were like, I can't remember what they were when they came out. They were like R-Flex, like 100s or something like that. And it wasn't that much lighter, but the combination of the flex and the swing weight, because I put my swing weights up, and those were stock, just threw me off just a little bit. That you could see me like starting to step forward on the follow through, whereas on the other data set I didn't.
a golf swing is an incredible motion. If you guys think just how many muscles you use in a golf swing at speed, when you need to synchronize time, make everything move at the same point, at the same speed, to get that golf club head, which is moving at whatever speed through 3D space, to line up on all the different angles that you need to get that golf ball going somewhere where you want it to go, is an incredible thing. It doesn't take much to mess up your synchronization, your timing, and it can be just literally just changing the shaft within the fitting. You feel it when it comes to doing fittings, that you have this reaction to different weights of equipment. Commonly it's different weights, static weight differences and swing weight differences. Flexes, yeah, but it's the combination of weight, static weight and swing weight, which I found makes the biggest difference for someone saying that feels this feels that, and has a big difference on their synchronization, their timing, how they move their body. It can make a huge difference for your timing. Absolutely can do.
But that doesn't necessarily always mean it's a long-term negative difference.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
You could swap shafts and then have a terrible time with it until you practice with it a little bit more, and then you could find it actually produces a better swing overall, because it suits your muscles. You're just not used to it right away. But anyway.
Gragan says, Jay, being shaft neutral, using a pulling motion and match up your shot data for the heat maps is incredible for info. Your heat maps on driver heads will be way better than MGS testing. I'm glad you think so. I think it will be as well. And obviously going forward, when I say if, it has to happen when the topic of another podcast will be the swing robot. It has to happen. My body can't do another year like this. It can't. And I've still got... Oh, let's go on. Let's just do it. Everyone loves an unveiling. These just come. Yeah. Everyone loves an unveiling.
Double wrapped for your protection.
That's what she said. Right, so what do you think?
Oh, hazardous black?
Black and white and red, reminiscent of Titleist head covers of old.
Callaway back in the original steelhead days too, right?
Right, so before we look at the head, obviously that's important. First of all, we have to check out what is it like as a mitt. Doesn't pass the mitt test.
It's not a good boxing glove.
Well, no, so in winter time, when it's cold, these are great. You know the ones with like the furry ones inside, like the very 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 fluffy. What's the like a velour-y kind, but really lovely. Yeah, just feels this.
You're taking club.
It's fine.
Looks and feel to a whole new level here.
Yeah.
Critiquing the head covers.
It's a good quality bean. This is a properly nice thick thing, so no thin crap. So that's really quite cool. And
my head covers go in the closet after the first day, and then they're never seen again.
Yes, I suppose in the sim they don't need it, do they? Right, so there's the head cover, and now we have
Yes.
Right, let's unwrap this
Max.
baby. And of course, what have I got this in? Andy saw it.
It's hazardous black, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's it. You
it's
know
the
me
new
and shafts.
hazardous. Yeah, it's the new. Is it the
I'm on it.
RDX black?
There you go. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it makes no difference to me. I'll just be like, yeah.
Oh, one piece first time.
Now, I must say, from a first looking point of view, this is the Max, by the way.
It's pretty clean.
I'm not sold on it.
As he's looking at the sole.
Yeah, I'm not sold on it. It's something about that, and you can't really see it because it's poor light from this side, and I apologise for that. But there is this bar that goes like this, and it is quite. Hang on, it's quite
What do you think
pronounced.
about that with dealing with angle of attack? Do you think that's a problem?
Oh, there you go. You can see. I don't know. When I hit 7 up, you'll find out. There's that you can see it. It's quite a big stretched out. It's
I mean
different.
that's ideal. You know, if you want low CG, back CG, having it well below the having it on the same level as the crown rather than. I mean, if you look at the ping one, right, and the Titleist one at the back, it's up towards the crown side, which is not ideal.
And I will say this as well. So I've got this in the 9-degree head, standard loft at the moment. I will be putting up to 1.5 up to do the 10.5-degree test that I do with all the drivers. Obviously, no point doing a 80 miles an hour test with a 9-degree driver. That's not going anywhere. So one thing I will say, if Shrixon you're watching, no, he won't be. Not now. Not 2 hours in, he won't be. Before I go, because we've got to go, well done. Because I have been saying this to manufacturers for years and they just don't do it. Why do manufacturers keep on just sending, let's say they've got 4 heads. Let's pick on any manufacturer's got 4 heads and say, we need obviously the 4 heads for testing. Send it in a shaft, 1 shaft, 4 heads.
4 heads.
Don't need 4 shafts. The other 3 shafts never get used. I keep on having to take them out, put the ones in, take them out.
Oh, smart.
Well done, Shrixon. Well done. So now, all I have in here is the other head. And in the other one, I have another head. Well done. See? Ow. And well, I tell you what, while Shrixon are listening, of which they're not, will you stop doing one thing as well, please?
No tool in every bag.
No, health and safety.
Right? Oh, babies, kids, plastic.
No, for me. Will you stop using staples? You staple literally flipping everything, and you staple your lids shut, and of course when you put your hand in to go get it, because they've stapled it through to do something, you start stripping your bits of skin off. So stop that, and then you stapled this shut, you muppets. Right, in this one I have the, I don't know which one is. It's the standard ZXI, just the standard.
2 weights, 2 back weights.
2 back weights. 2 back weights. There we go. That's got to be done. So hence why we need a swing robot. And then we'll do this one. I've learned staple. Look, sellotape would have been fine.
Nothing would have been fine.
Look, now that's jagged as heck now, and that will strip my, yeah, blooming thing. Right, and then this one should be the LS. Ta-da! The LS model. There you go, front, back weight. 10 grams in the front, 4 in the back. That is interesting. Why I say that's interesting on the basis of this, if you look at most manufacturers' LS models, whatever their low spin tech models are, they will,
15.
as standard, normally have the heavy weight at the back and the light weight at the front, even on the LS. The fact they've chosen out of the box, remember this is cellophane. This has not been messed around with, this is stock. So just beware when you get your LS, it will have the heavy weight at the front in the lowest spin possible. Now, Andy, what do you think? 10.5 degrees, what should you think I should do with that weight to be comparable as much as anything else with everybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I would flip it backwards. That way you give roughly the same, it's the best option for the CG. I mean, we don't, having it maximized like that. I don't know. It's stock, so maybe you should just test it stock.
It's childproof for Jay, Zero says. Did they do that because you broke their fancy new ZXi4? Possibly. But yeah, I don't know. For a certain portion of me thinks, okay, so the other LS heads that we've tested, they've tested on the basis that their center of gravity of that head is as far back for that LS model as they can do. And would it be unfair then for the heat map if you're talking about the spin profile? Because effectively we're talking about dragging the green blob down. Would it be better?
I'd say whatever stock is stock, knowing
Okay.
that that's stock, and then if you if that one if it produced too much low spin, you could always move the weight backwards. Personally,
Yes.
but you really want to know what spin profile it's making stock. So
I have a feeling if this is a fairly low spin CG head anyway, and they've rammed the 10 gram at the front, this could be a fairly low spin head. What I do like is they have reduced the size of the face. That's going to scare people. But there is a very, very, very heavy curvature, like properly heavy curvature running from the crown all the way down into
is that
the
above
sole.
the face, or is that actually part of the face too, as the curve on it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's pretty. That's a lot of extra loft up top. If that's a low spin head with that much extra loft, that could be a distance beast.
No, yes, I have got a tape measure. No. Let's measure the face. Wow. Jeez. Holy balls, Batman.
That's so. Remember they were talking about their new when we were having on the conversation restriction. They were talking about their change in driver profiles this time around. How
44.
They've moved significantly away from the classic radius to multiple radii.
Yeah.
And that's clearly very round at the top compared to the bottom.
44.
In millimeters, that's a pretty short base.
Very. Let's go the other way then, shall we?
98.
Well, it all depends on where you say the blooming thing starts from. Because it's so rounded. Look at that. There is no.
I mean, that's what you want off a low spin head. With the amount of the amount of tilt axis you're going to get from the low spin head, you want more roll and bulge.
Yeah, it's just that it's where there's the bordering of the face. There's normally a little bit more of a sharper edge. Now for aerodynamics, the aerodynamicists are going to love it. Oh, you're going to get 1.62 miles an hour out of 122 miles an hour swing speed with this design. Dear me. Right, let's just be as kind.
I asked you not to do any impressions of me on air.
No, I'd say it's about
98?
oh my word, it's about 95 mil wide.
Too.
So it's about 10 mil shorter and about 6 mil. Well, sorry, 10 mil narrow, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. So it's small. Surface area of the face is reduced relative to the body size of the head. So I don't know if that's the same with all of them. I must admit, I don't know. I'll have a quick look on the max. The max. Right. Kicking stuff and hitting stuff. Yeah, it's exactly the same. Rounded, very, very rounded. My God, that's so rounded.
Well, it's good to see. I mean, something different, right? It's either going to be very good or not so good. But
can you see the round on that?
Yeah.
Where the sheen is on the, like, yeah. I mean, look, guys, if you're hitting that far off the face, to be worried about the fact that it's 6 mil not as tall and 10 mil not as wide, bearing in mind that's 3 mil up and down and 5 mil left and right, we really need to have a conversation about coaching rather than anything to do with equipment. So,
or you're trying to hit it 400 yards.
Yeah, from what part of the face, I don't know. But that'll be an interesting one. I say that on the basis of me trying to put a face on, because honestly, being honest completely before I go, I see those here and I've got no want to hit another 12 data sets. Excuse me.
All right, we got one last question, I think.
Go for it.
Quick question. Higher loft generally means more forgiveness. Higher loft, 10 average, so forth. No. Loft is not a function of forgiveness. Higher loft produces more spin. More spin limits your tilt access for when you have face-to-path errors. But in general, that doesn't necessarily mean forgiving. Straighter, high loft may be straighter. You could argue it's straighter. Now, if you think straighter is more forgiving, that's neither here nor there. But for me, that doesn't necessarily mean forgiving. Straighter, you
Two
could
parts
argue.
to forgiveness. I see people think at different amounts in the conversation with drivers. Forgiving, which one reduces curvature? Which one is straighter? That's what people see sometimes as forgiving. And then the other one absolutely is when you hit it all over the face, which one goes the same distance than when I hit out the middle? That's probably what we see more as consistent rather than forgiving, or same word, but you know what I mean. So for you, if you see forgiveness as that, there, as in the former, then the high loft would give you more spin and then would keep you straighter. It would obviously keep you shorter, dependent. If you're on ultra low spin already and have fallen out the sky because your spin rate's at 400 RPM, and you go to a higher lofted and it jumps up to a sensible amount and you're getting normal flights, then yes, you'll get more distance and you will decrease the amount of curvature.
Yeah,
However,
I mean, the
most people
counter
aren't
argument for me is why I don't consider straightness necessarily as more forgiving is if I hit a straight shot, it's not good. Like if
Well,
my
for you
ball
it's
is
not, no.
because I hit a draw. So if my ball doesn't draw and it goes straight, I mean, I'm already aiming right because I hit a draw. Right
Yep.
of right is bad. So a straight shot for me
Yes.
is not good. So the right amount of curve for my shot shape is important, which means I have to have the right amount of spin for my curve.
Yeah.
So higher loft, it doesn't necessarily mean the ball's going to end up where I want it more often.
And
so
that's
yeah,
perfect.
no. So if you want to think if you're already hitting a neutral path, and you want to eliminate your left or right miss because of face-to-pass errors, yes, higher loft is more likely to put you on a straighter line more often. But for me, straighter isn't necessarily the benefit.
And nor for a heavy fader, we'll call it.
Well, yeah, most pros are paying the power fade now, right? So they need a bit of curvature going there, and if their loft is too high then they can't hit that fade, then yeah, they're going to be in trouble.
And there you go. And Jay says, I didn't think about the two sides of forgiveness. I guess retaining ball speed when not in the centre is also forgiving. This is the problem where Andy says, going back to the very start, about the problem about the word forgiveness has not actually ever been defined in a specific way. And so it is then, unfortunately, is tagged on by so many different manufacturers with so many different, like, forgiveness, 10K. So instantly now 10K means ultimate forgiveness. Well, no, 10K is referencing MOI, and MOI is resistance to twist. Well, resistance to twist is either good or bad, depending on if you require it or not. And we haven't even talked about torque of the shaft, how torque the shaft is. So the fact that if you've got a shaft which bends a lot in torque, then it will have a different amount of gear effect than a shaft which is like a scaffold pole. Because the face is going to twist, it's going to rotate as that ball is here. Obviously the head's got inertia, as do, but it's still going around a central point. And that's why you have, in situations I've had with drivers, that if you hit, I'm not shaft sensitive, however, if I hit something massively off the toe in different shafts, I can feel the difference in the shafts by how much the physical head twists around. My grip doesn't change, so it's not like twisted in my hands. I'm feeling the physical shaft torque from the off-center hit. It's a myriad of different things, but yeah, it's consistency. We need to change it, but we can't.
Everything about golf is consistency. Path, base to path, angle of attack, speed. The more consistent all those are, the better your golf is going to be. So it's the same thing with the club. The more consistent a club is, irregardless of whether it's low spin, high spin, as long as it's consistent within a range, then it's better. You could play either high spin or low spin, straight or not so straight, so long as it does the same thing every time you do this. If you do the same thing, it does the same thing. Golf's easy.
Yeah. And if not, if you struggle with golf and you play to whatever handicap, I can remember back when I was obviously a handicap golfer, getting better and going down the handicap, etc. When I started getting to a certain point, you got to change your boundaries a little bit. Now, when I first started, it was the case of as long as the ball goes forward. That was the thing. It's just got to go forward. Don't care where it goes, as long as the golf ball goes forward. And of course, you move on, and I still think the best fun that if I could go out and play golf would be 18 handicap. If I could do it all again and I didn't do golf for YouTube or anything else like that, and I just played for fun, I want to be an 18 handicap. It's just the most wondrous handicap to have ever. It's no stress.
You're not worried about having a good round, but then again, if you do have a good round, it's really, really great.
No, I'd purposely do every single thing I could do to make sure that I hit 93 every single time I played. I just played 93 every single time, play 21 over, keep on my 18 handicap, and I'll be just happy as a pig in poo.
That's easy, right? You just play as good as you can, 1 to 17, and then just hit whatever, just put 10 times on 18.
You can't, though, with your handicap, can you? That's the problem.
I honestly don't keep it that often. Like, I never had a handicap in real... Like, I've never submitted a card for a handicap or any of that jazz.
Oh, I see. If you want to manufacture your handicap, you've got to be clever about it.
The only way I know what I'm at is what the computer tells me from the sim. That's the only way I know where I'm at.
Dear me. Well, it's been a long while since I've had to worry about it myself as well, but it's I can remember the times going through, getting through down the handicaps from wowzers when I was younger, being just terrible, like having the most banana slice ever. Everyone goes through it. And so, yeah, that's what I want to be. 18 handicap.
I would go out on the course. We don't play like, index scores. We play scrambles and just for fun. So I wouldn't have any scored cards to submit even if I tried.
Yeah. As long as you have fun, who cares what you score? That's the main thing. Pete says, don't believe you would settle for an 18 handicap.
I mean, 18 isn't really that bad. I mean,
it's great. No stress.
One per hole. That's not terrible. Like seriously, that's not terrible.
Well, I just keep my driver. Just leave my driver at home, and I just literally take a 7-iron and putter.
Oh, to deliberately play an extra shot per hole.
Yeah. Because you don't have to carry anything hardly. I mean,
I
that
think
golf would be so
if I was
easy.
going to do that, I think it'd be a 9-iron putter.
Yeah, well, yeah, because you hit your 9-iron as far as I hit my 7-iron easily, if not further.
What is my 9-iron now? 167.
Oh yeah, 3 yards further than me. So there you go. Yeah, okay. Right, we'll leave it on that one. Right, guys. Thanks very much for watching as always. Hope we got through some of your questions and apologise if we haven't seen it. Sorry, just so we Eero here. We know that quad is the gold standard for the indoor tracking. Andy has a Mevo Plus, as do I. What are the differences between the two besides the massive cost? Massive cost.
Yeah, for the differences for the cost, it's you could argue that you have to be really obsessive to justify the cost difference.
Yes, I agree
The
100%.
the Mevo Plus gives you close enough information that
Yeah,
it really is a learning tool. It really is good enough to really
yeah,
if you're talking about precise pro fitting, no, but
no.
nobody buying a Mevo is worried about precise pro fitting.
So for a Mevo Plus user, what you're looking at is you're trying to work on your swing, you're trying to work on the consistency of the numbers. It doesn't matter if the numbers are slightly out, it matters on to how consistent those numbers are as to how consistent you can get your swing. When you're talking about a completely different thing, so let's just take my example of me running what I do. There is no way that I could do it without that. That is just a business requirement. That is 20 odd grand's worth of you need to buy it to do what you need to do. Yeah, can't get away from that. No different to a fitter. Anyone who's a fitter or a coach, you need that. You can't get away with a proper coach and a proper custom fitting nowadays without that tech, because unfortunately that just validates every single thing you say, because it's not perfect, nothing is, but it's as close to modern day as you can get it. But from a end user point of view, the Mevo Plus, considering all the data points that it gives you, the flexibility that it gives you as well, and for the
Yeah,
cost that it is,
the
it's one
Mevo
of the
Plus by
best.
itself is good. The Pro plan takes it to the next level. For the amount of
Mm-hmm.
money you add with the Pro plan, you pretty much have to buy it with the Pro plan.
Yeah.
The face impact add-on again, so. It really depends on when you're very learning. I can see why it'd be important when you're very learning and you haven't got used to knowing that the sensory feedback of where you're hitting on the face to have that
Yeah.
tell you without doing the spray powder trick. But then again, a
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
spray powder also works. So
But not in an indoor
yeah,
sim, it don't.
yeah. So
It's dirty.
it's neither here nor there. You'll find it really cool. But after a while, you might say, yeah, maybe it wasn't worth it. But the one thing the face add-on does also is gives you your acceleration curve, which even quad doesn't do that, which is kind of nice. It shows you your acceleration curve of your head, so you can actually do shaft fitting based on the acceleration curve to a degree. So
Yeah, quad measures from a certain point to a certain point. It will have an acceleration curve potential if someone wants to put that facility in there. But again, it's the classic thing from different manufacturers will have different things as baseline parameters and metrics to measure. Quad hasn't decided to do that.
yeah.
I don't necessarily know why, because I couldn't.
And I think the real reason why the shaft the acceleration profiles are actually a really good tool if they can perfect them is it shows you when we're talking about whether a shaft profile is going to help you or help you not. It shows you the club head acceleration before impact. It'll show you if you've got a hook in the acceleration where the shaft is kicked
Yeah.
right at the right time, or whether it shows you that there's been no kick. You haven't got any kick velocity. It's a straight line through impact. Whereas if you get the kick velocity, you'll see the up increase in acceleration at the ball, and that's a good sign if you want to maximize distance, because that 3 mile an hour from kick velocity is a big deal when it talks potentially going from 82 to 85.
Yeah, I think with quad, if it's have to do with quad, you'd have to work out some way of dotting it, because obviously quad only measures effectively dots. So
Yeah, it can measure the shaft. Yeah, if you put a dot on the shaft, it could probably potentially measure the relationship of shaft dot to face
but
dots.
you'd need
But
a dot up further up higher, wouldn't you, to measure,
yeah, it
see
depends
how
on
it
whether it
kicked.
depends on whether it could see it. But yeah, the radar can show you the any change in acceleration of the head towards the ball,
Interesting.
which is
See,
kind of cool.
there you go. Right, guys, thank you very much for watching. Appreciate all the time, all the chats that you have given us. Appreciate all of the new people. I haven't seen a few, all different names on there today. So cool. Right, next week we will most probably be doing podcast again. If you have any topics that you would like us to talk about, get in the Discord. Best way to do it, Discord. Get it in the. Do we need, Andy? Do we need to add in on Discord podcast section?
Yeah, for questions, people put questions that people want to answer.
Yeah, put it on the T box
Yeah,
or on that side of things, so no one.
yeah.
You can be a guest user and pop in your suggestions for comments, questions. We'll do question of the week as always. So today's was from Michael Sinclair, so thank you very much for that one. But then we'll do a similar thing every single week. So I'll pick a good question at random for any of the platforms, but again, I'll probably most likely focus on Discord most of all. But if you've got good questions, stick it in there and we'll have that. Any other topics you want us to discuss, by all means, put it in there as well. And then if all goes well, we will see or speak to everybody next Monday, 7 o'clock. I'll try and get there a little bit early when it comes to doing the countdown. It was a little bit of a rush job today because it was going to be a podcast, it was going to be a live stream, and it was going to be a podcast, literally about that quick. Thanks, Andy. Andy says bye.
Yeah,
Bye, guys. I'll catch you soon. Take care.
see ya.